Hello and welcome back to my channel, Mental Health with Melissa. If you're new here, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button for more content. I post new videos every single Sunday and Wednesday, and subscribing to my channel really helps me get mental health information out there to our communities of color, plus tons of Lcsw test prep for you. And I have my social work study test prep Lcsw program that's available for purchase on my website. You can find the link below if you're interested in purchasing that. Again, if you're new here, please subscribe to my channel. My analytics show that a majority of the people that watch my videos are unsubscribed, so subscribing really helps me get more information out there to you. I am a psychotherapist, a licensed clinical social worker, a clinical supervisor, and a PhD psychology research student. So let's go ahead and get into the content of the video. Today we are going to be talking about self-determination. Self-determination is such an important principle in the field of social work and mental health, more particularly social work. And this is a topic that comes up a lot with my supervisees, with people that I'm training at work, with interns, and just in consultation with other colleagues. Because when there are some maybe concerning behaviors that our personal belief systems don't agree with, it can make it challenging to, for lack of a better term, be in agreement with a client's choice or their will to choice. And so this is such an important topic that I want to discuss because it does pop up on the Lcsw exam. And in the part 2 of this video, I'm going to have an Lcsw test prep question for you. So like I've been doing recently, this information in this video, part 1, is going to be more of an informational sort of video. And then you're going to come back and watch part 2, and that's going to have the actual Lcsw test prep question for you. So we want to go ahead and get right into it. And I want to define self-determination kind of just as it stands alone, and then also define the social work definition. So let's get into the content. Okay, so self-determination, I found this on the web first with a quick Google search, is this is the definition of self-determination just as is, not having anything to do with social work. So self-determination, the process by which a group of people, usually possessing a certain degree of national consciousness, form their own state and choose their own government. So if you look for a self-determination yourself, this is probably the sort of definition that you're going to get. And basically what the general and sort of web perspective on self-determination is somebody's own ability and degree of consciousness to form their own state and choose their own government. So that's kind of what we have going on with this democratic country that we live in. And so if you already knew what self-determination was based on living in the United States, then keep those core understanding, the core understanding that you have of that, but then apply it to the principles of social work. Because the main things that we're looking at here is having the ability to form your own decisions if you're able to make decisions and you have the capacity to do so. So why did I take a general sort of definition of self-determination? Well, because this kind of term is thrown around a lot just in general outside of social work. So I wanted to make sure that you had an idea of what it means outside of the mental health profession and kind of even the medical profession, and then take a look at it as it relates to healthcare decisions. So now I'm going to give you the definition of self-determination as it relates to social work and behavioral health. So I listed the link here if you want to go and check out that article. That's where I specifically got this definition of self-determination. So an ethical principle in social work which recognizes the rights and needs of clients to be free to make their own choices and decisions. So again, that kind of goes back to what we were talking about with somebody making their own decision and having the right to, when we're talking about how as it relates to just the general definition of self-determination. So in the principle, inherent in the principle is the social workers helping the client to know what, I'm sorry, I don't know why there are random periods here. I apologize for that. What the resources and choices are and what the consequences of selecting one may be. So again, check out this article, very interesting. I have the APA citation here if you're interested. But again, basically the key sort of thing that we want to keep in mind is the social worker helping the client to know what the resources and choices are and what the consequences of selecting one may be. So I want to give an example of this. Say you are working with a new client and you are giving them kind of an informed consent about your work together. So one of the key things that you should do in an informed consent, and I have a video on informed consent, so please defer to that video for more information. But one of the key things that you're going to want to do in the informed consent is the limits of confidentiality. And in the limits of confidentiality, you specifically let your new client know that what you talk about remains private. However, there are limits, and those limits are being a mandated reporter. So if anything comes up about wanting to self-harm, harm others, or abusing a child or elderly person, then any of that information, will have to be reported. But it is important to give that information when you're starting off a therapeutic relationship with the client. So that's an example. You're letting the client know that what they share will remain private, except there are these limits. And if they mention any of those things, then they will have to, be reported. So that's the consequences of selecting what that may be. So I want to now kind of, because the main part of this is really just understanding the major principles of self-determination. I want to get into the test prep question, and again, that's going to be in the part 2 video, so make sure to keep out a look on that. Self-determination, something that I do want to say about that is for those that have been deemed to have the capacity to make decisions. And capacity is deemed usually by a medical provider or a mental health provider, such as a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a physician. And if the patient or the individual is deemed to have capacity, then they know that they basically can make whatever decisions that they want to. Now, if a client or a patient is deemed to not have the capacity, and again, that's usually deemed by some sort of medical provider, or again, a psychologist, if the psychologist is able to assess for capacity, then it may not be in anybody's best interest to defer to self-determination. An example of that is a patient that has severe dementia. Say the patient has severe dementia, wants to take a cruise by themselves, and in regular life they have 2 full-time caregivers that take care of him or her in their house because of the cognitive state. Now, if this was somebody that had the capacity to make decisions, then of course we would honor that self-determination. Now, self-determination may be taken away with this particular person because they don't have the cognitive capacity to fully understand and how managing to be independent, like on the cruise, and something may happen to them while they're on the cruise, for example. So I just wanted to say that. And again, that's usually deemed by a psychologist, a psychiatrist, or a physician. And it can get a little sticky sometimes because I have seen some patients that have some mild cognitive, neurocognitive disorder, and sometimes are able to really have the capacity in certain arenas, but then in other areas or other times when they're not lucid, it's a little bit more challenging. So we're always going to want to defer to somebody who specializes in that and defer to the appropriate scope of practice. So make sure again you stay tuned for the part 2 of this video, and it will include the vignette question. Alrighty, thank you so much for watching. Again, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button for more content like this. Until next time, managing mental health matters.